receiving end of death threats from our peers. Undergraduates who have filed reports about these incidents have been left with no emotional support, no feedback, and no consequences for the perpetrators of these hateful actions. As a result of this inaction, there are Jewish students who do not feel physically safe on campus. And yet the unequivocal tone of the student body and frankly the administration prior to recent email statements is, no, this is not what anti-Semitism is. This is not what you are experiencing.
Daniel Martino joins us now, PhD student at Columbia University. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
All right, so what is it like at Columbia right now?
Well, what's going on is that, I have neighbors who are Jewish and classmates who are Jewish and have asked me whether it's safe for them to go outside.
What do you tell them?
Well, I tell them that, the sad reality is that if you're a man and you wear a kippah, then you're probably going to be identified as Jewish in the street. And there are marches of people who support Hamas and everything that's going on there and are harassing those people. So, I would be careful, and that's what I tell them.
Did you know that there's this level of anger towards Israel, towards Jewish people? Did you have any idea?
I never did. I came originally from Venezuela to the United States in 2016, and so I'm used to, the class warfare and all of that from a socialist country. But coming to America, I never thought there would be so much anti-Semitism, and it concerns me because, all these students who are doing this, right? I think it's because of virtue signaling. A lot of commentators I've seen are blaming it on maybe, it's just Muslim immigrants or anything else. I think, at least at Colombia, most of them are native-born Americans, and that's what scares me the most, right? Because it means that the education system is telling them that this is what's good, that evil is good and that good is evil. And we need to be teaching right from wrong again in this country.
But, you're talking about elite. You know how hard it is to get into Columbia? You did. To get the elite of the elite, go to these schools. And you have to know nuance. It's not, well, George Floyd got choked to death. He shouldn't have died. We all know that. That's my protest. I understand that. When you see this, you don't understand. If you just look at this, you don't understand what goes on. The carnage on the 7th, the history behind it. All of a sudden, these people in their 20s are out there marching 100,000 in D.C. against Israel. And do you know of them teaching this in school?
Yeah, and it's just really disheartening. I wish that these students would do something better with their time, and that they would inform themselves. Can you imagine if a professor had 3 years ago celebrated the killing of George Floyd? But that's exactly what's happening now. There was a tenured professor at Columbia who said he was very happy and excited after the attack by Hamas. And nothing happens to those people. So there is cancel culture in this country. There is cancel culture against conservatives who have opinions on things maybe about taxes or opinions on the Supreme Court. But when there are liberal professors who justify terrorist attacks and even celebrate them, nothing happens to them.
So, Daniel, what's being done on campus since this started breaking out a couple of weeks ago? Because I also talked to a professor offline who stood up and spoke out and called on the president to do something. He's Jewish and said you got to stand up. And I know Columbia is losing donations. Some of the most powerful people in the world graduated from Columbia. They are now running away from donating to them. So what has changed?
Well, what's most surprising about all of this is that Columbia is, I believe, the most Jewish of all the Ivy League universities, just by the virtue of being in New York and the student body and the faculty. And so this will have, I think, very negative consequences on Columbia. I think the president, she just assumed office, the president of Columbia, will find out that she miscalculated. But I wish this didn't have to be about consequences and miscalculations. This should just be about doing what's right, right? But they don't. They divest from oil funds, thinking that that's going to help the environment, when what they should be doing is, innovating. What they should be doing is teaching their students. And instead, they don't take action when real important things happen. And that's what disappoints me. And I think much things are going to change. I think students are going to want to keep coming to Columbia because of the price of having an Ivy League degree. And unless more donors act, it's not going to be enough.
Daniel Martino, our guest. He's a Dissident project founder, a fellow at the Manhattan Institute, and a PhD student at Columbia University. So I guess I don't have to tell you, there's been a surge of anti-Semitic crime and attacks against Jews, 200%. Since the Israeli-Hamas war sprung up and the offensive went into Gaza, up 200%. Last year there were 45 attacks. They're surging big time now. So the police officers are already undermanned and understaffed and overworked. So they're wondering what's going to be next. And today, high school students are walking out of, I don't even think high school, all students, 100 schools, walking out of class at noon today to protest the offensive, the war in Gaza. You still there, Daniel? Okay, still there. You know, the good news is it looks like Peter Doocy did get a question in on President Biden. President Biden, I'm sure we'll bring that back shortly. He's now talking to the press. He actually walked over and he feels he has something to say. He's going to go speak about Bidenomics shortly. What he should be speaking about is anti-Semitism. He should have his vice president bring up Islamophobia because although there's always some type of prejudice out there, we're not seeing a surge against Muslims in this country, not by the longest. Not by any stretch. Final thought, Daniel. I just want you to finish your thought. For people who just think it's in uptown New York, it's not. Today, 100 schools in New York City will walk out at noon to protest Israel's military action in Gaza. Just final thought on that.
Look, as you know, I'm the founder of the Dissident Project. We sent immigrants who lived in authoritarian countries to speak at high schools to tell our stories. And we do this because we know that there's indoctrination going on in the schools in this country, public, private, and any type. And this is what's happening with the high schools. It's a symptom of that indoctrination. These students don't know better. These students are just being told by their teachers. Many of them are being given credit by their teachers to do this. We need action at the government level. You know, we need state governments to fight against this in Republican states. And then we also need more teachers to stand up for what they believe in, right? They also have First Amendment protections each time they protest in favor of Israel.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm glad you're doing this. Glad you're taking action. Daniel, for somebody who was born in Venezuela and lives here, what's your message to the American people about their country?
That this is the best country in the world, and it is the best country in the world because the American people have kept it free and prosperous. And so we need to keep doing that. And the only way to do it is to pass on to the next generation the understanding that we are free because of our limited government and our system of separation of powers in the Constitution. And so, you know, if people want to know more and teach their kids about this, I would encourage them to go to our website, dissidentproject.org, and we help parents and teachers to do this.
Go get them, Daniel. I love your perspective. I love your attitude. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. Stay safe over in Colombia. And this is the most gratifying thing about doing this book, Teddy and Booker T.